Hi, I will be spending some time on this video talk about subject that's have been of interest to me for a very long time. I took a lot of courses in thermodynamics and heat transfers and also quantum physics and math, and I want to present a model of many systems, whether they are living or maybe it's a company or a country or a bureaucracy or a piece of electronics. Uh, I want to show this model and how it's gonna change and become more advanced in the future. Basically, I want to compartmentalize any system into three parts. The first would be the information content of that company or that piece of software or that electronics or the database or culture it has. Okay, so that's one aspect. Then like having an input output box, you'll have an algorithm that takes the input or some form of energy or some kind of input that might be other forms of information, and then does a little processing on it and then gives it out as some other output. But what's inside the box is either a program or an algorithm, and then what comes out of the box could be any product or service. And then most systems they need energy to be able to run this algorithm, and the energy source is often compatible with the kind of algorithm or the kind of information that's being processed. Okay, well, I was watching a video about farming, and the author was saying that if you have a corn field, okay, you're growing corn, and if there is a right amount of water in the soil, not too much, not too little, the corn will run deep roots and grow real healthy and tall stalks and gives out good corn. But if you flood this plain frequently with a lot of water, okay, so the corn will not really grow very well because the roots in order to they don't have to run deep into the soil to get water. They just the water is just there, and so the roots they don't grow well. When the water is gone, the stalk hasn't grown very well because the it's not following the algorithm of the plant or the genes, what the genes were designed for a certain amount of water and certain amount of roots, and so everything gets really messed up, and you won't really have a good crop. Okay, so let's compare this model with what is happening in United States. Actually, the central bank in United States and also in Europe is they have an easy monetary policy. Like many companies, they can issue bonds of their own or go to the central bank and get as much money as they want at very low interest rate. Okay, so and also there is a tremendous amount of financial engineering going on they generate cash, and also the Federal Reserve comes in and buys all these bonds and equities. So what this does, this tremendous amount of cash that comes into the market, what it does, it destroys the algorithm, the information content or the gene programming of many of the companies that were built in the 50s or 60s. Okay, so these companies, when capitalism was working right, they were built to manufacture stuff and sell it as a profit. They were not the algorithm or the genes. They don't tell you, hey, you're gonna get all this cash and you didn't do shit for it. Well, right now many companies, American companies, they hardly manufacture anything here. Take good companies like Apple or IBM, all the electronics, all the hardware, mechanical pieces, everything, even drugs or clothes that are manufactured elsewhere, because the company makes so much money marking up these products and reselling it around the world and also to the Americans here. So there is a ready supply of money. Then on top of that, their stock prices keep climbing, and they make all kinds of money there. And then they have the options market, and you know, they cut employees down to nothing and still make money. Still the company stock values goes up. So basically, what is tremendous supply of cash and kindness of and generosity of central bank has done to the American companies, they have made them a very flimsy company. Such a company would not have a chance of a snowflake in hell in operating in the world without all these subsidies. If you look at the kinds of companies that are operating in foreign countries like Japan or well, I don't know about Japan, but China and Middle East or South America, they are often very lean and mean companies. There is no free cash, and they cut costs. They try to make the best of the labor and make the best product, aggressively market it. It's a company. It's a meaningful company, just like that cornfield that had right amount of water. The corn roots they went deep into the soil to hang on to it and also get nutrients and water. I had to struggle real hard, and then every bit of it went into making a healthy tall plant. So this this two systems, these two examples, show that the energy source of a system has to be compatible with the algorithm or the genes, what the genes want to do in that company, and also with the information content of the company. Well, a company that's making hands over money, hands over fist, all kinds of cash, will soon forget its genes and look where the money is coming, and will be doing that. If the financial engineering makes money, hey, we're gonna do financial engineering, or sell options, or buy options, or well, let's get rid of most of our workers, and we'll have less overhead, but the money will keep rolling in. So what I'm saying is the company culture or the information content of that company will change. It will become something else that's compatible with the energy source that or the money that's coming into the company. So Many American companies that exist now in our age, they're like Ford company or say IBM or Apple. They were built many years ago, but that doesn't mean that this is the same company. If like 90% of the stuff they do or make or manufacture or sell is made and manufactured elsewhere, and they're just the end of the shipping line, they're the sales force. That's a fundamentally different company, isn't it? Now, if we go to that cornfield that had water flooding in, you'll see a lot of plants growing there that they look like weeds. They're not really a real healthy corn stock. They're not a good crop. Many of them, they won't flower, or they won't even have the corn stalks. Okay, so this is one aspect of looking at it when energy sources uh, become deranged and they're not compatible. Well, there is another way of looking at this, and this is where technology is taking us. Well, actually, I think that most of the wealth that's generated is because of the technicians and technology, not because of all the stupid things the companies do with their finances or stocks. Okay, I was studying or reading about graphene, and that many companies are now starting to make graphene capacitors or batteries, okay, which they can store a lot more energy and a lot more milliamps or watt hours. Anyhow, so there was a guy was talking about the future for such capacitors or such supercharged graphene capacitors. He was saying that as we go along this route, these capacitors will hold so much charge in them that well, you could probably charge up one of the Tesla cars and go for a while. So this is a really important development when energy becomes when we are able to store energy in very large quantities and readily available in a good form, then the industry or the car makers or airplane makers or spaceplane makers will come around at some point or another and use this source of energy to power their gadgets. Okay, whatever that gadget might be. It might be a drone, it might be a space plane, it might be a car, it might be factory. Say for example, some company made a graphene capacitor that could store the energy or electric requirement for a small manufacturing plant for 24 hours. Okay, so if I am the owner, I could buy a couple of these batteries. Then I also I'm free now. I don't have to use existing power plant outputs. I could have thousands of solar panels and gradually collect in a very wide area in a small amounts of milliamps, and then add them up and get one huge bang in a battery. You follow what I'm saying? This is exactly like getting unplugged from power plants, because then you have this energy, you can go anywhere, or you can use less destructive, like you don't have to have a coal power plant, you can have solar or wind, and they can be intermittent power. But because you're able to store all that energy in a battery, then you could have 5-10 of these batteries and use the when the one is ready to go, you just use that for this upcoming 24 hours or 48 hours or 72 hours. So the fact that these systems are coming online, that these storage energy storage units are becoming available, that kind of is like a jump in advancement, because then it will lead into a kind of mobility for cars, for planes, for drones, for families, because what you have is you're basically unshackled from the requirements of the locality. You have to have a power source. When this energy source also changes, that also will motivate other processes, just like the other example I told you, that the information content or the algorithm of the system will change because it has a readily available source of energy or money, and now it can do very exotic things that it could never do in the past. Say, for example, a crazy scientist like Hassan, finds a way to collect all the trash from restaurants and zap them with a laser and collect all the molecules and like make an actualizer, like what is it, like a Star Trek Next Generation. Okay, so this is a very energy intensive process. You have to zap all these refuse, and then use a very extensive algorithm and energy to put them back together into like a new cheesecake. Okay, so but because there is all these readily available massive quantities of electricity, then I am able to do all this stuff that normally I will not be able to do, and this will usher like a leap or jump in technological development. Well, I got a error code on my screen. I hope I don't lose this part of my lecture, but I think that these capacitors or these kinds of batteries, storage devices, they are like a beginning of a new industrial revolution, because it allows low tech like solar and wind to be utilized to create massive storage of electricity, and then do all kinds of exotic processes later on. But I'm going to come back to this topic at another time and look at many systems that succeed and also some that fail because of they abused or changed their information or algorithm, or the energy source was changed. Now going back to those first two examples, if the farmer cuts off the water to the cornfield after these stalks have grown and they're like weed, well, nothing will come out of that field. It's just going to totally die out. Okay, and the same goes with the United States and many other companies. Once this huge supply of cash is stopped, and then these companies, flimsy companies that they really don't know how to manufacture anymore or do things right and they were built in the 50s and 60s, and now they're doing all kinds of different things. They will wither and die too. And I think that the average Joe or the guy on the street, he kind of knows this in the back of his head or her head, and that's why Americans are very weary. It's like they're waiting for some disaster to strike them, or they're waiting for economic collapse, because human mind collects all these little bits of information, and even though they're not conscious of it, somewhere in the back of their mind it gathers up like a ghost. That's where this problem with the economic collapse worries comes in. Well, so thank you for being my YouTube channel. Please subscribe, and this is a subject that I will be going on it several different ways later on. I'm going to call this video information, algorithms, and energy or energy sources. Thank you. Have a nice day.